Welcome to the tribe. We're here to talk about Tezos, baking, and possibly a bit about life too. Now, some of you might not know what we're talking about generally or why I wear a baker's hat. Tezos is an environmentally friendly proof-of-stake blockchain with on-chain governance. That's a lot to unpack if you're a beginner, but we call our block production baking. Similar chains call their block production validating, and tonight we're here to call you to join the cause. I'm joined today by my usual partner in crime, Herman. We managed to get him on night release, so he could be here tonight. And it's also a pleasure to be joined by two long-term Tezos participants, Zir0h and Rich. A few things before we start. None of us represent our employers. This is just a bunch of good old boys having some fun. Sometimes we talk about cryptocurrency on the space. Please don't take anything as investment advice, particularly from Herman, who's typing. Anyway, that's the serious part out of the way. Let's get into it. So, chaps, let's go round. Who should we pick on first? Rich, how are you, sir? Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into Tezos and your experience?
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This is great. I've been in Tezos since the very beginning. I was in crypto before that. Started with Bitcoin, like most people, and then heard a podcast with Arthur that described things like formal verification. And these were very important things because it was at about the time where Ethereum's DAO was hacked and there was a fork. So there were two things that were really important at the time. Is the formal verification of that smart contract should have been done. And two was governance. The Ethereum fork is just... And after listening to Arthur on this podcast, I understood that these were fundamental problems that needed to be solved, and Tezos was the thing. And so I participated in the can't call it an ICO, but at the time I think we call it
fundraiser.
It is a fundraiser, correct? And that's how it all started.
Fantastic. So which protocol did you join then? What can you remember your first protocol? Mine was Granada, I think.
I think it was, well, I was testing the OCaml code before launch. I didn't want to donate to the fundraiser until I knew that I could compile it and run a node. So I was running a node a year before it launched. And then I was baking from day one.
So you were on Athens, one through. In fact, you were on Genesis and Bootstrap.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So we were Herman and I were going through all the protocols for something we were doing the other week, and investigating Athens 3. Well, that's fantastic. Zir0h, what have you? What's your experience with Tezos, and how did you get into it?
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. I first got here because of Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park. He started live streaming, and during his live streams, he did some sort of a bowl of ideas. So chatters could launch ideas, and then he had to put them in an artwork. And at that time, Hicketnunk was really big and booming, and he minted his artworks on there. And that's pretty much how I started with Tezos. Afterwards, he did his cigarettes drop. And for that, I launched an RPC node to get a bit in front of the other people. And from there on, it all snowballed. And now I'm a baker. And I met some really, really nice people on the chain here. Right now, I'm mostly... busy helping with Thea, which is like a bit of the follow-up of Hicketnunk after it went down. So I keep busy with that. And for the rest, I like testing stuff. So like for the BLS signer, the baking, the testnets and stuff like that. I really like doing that. Thank you for having me.
No, it's good. It's good to have you at last. We've been meaning to get you. You look nothing like your Twitter picture. In fact, are we sure it's even you? Right, so we normally start off by going around and talking about the highlights and the lowlights since the last episode, which was February, around about that time. We did an installation night. Zir0h, since we're talking to you, what are your highlights and lowlights for the month? You don't have to have any lowlights, but hopefully you got some highlights.
I'll start with the lowlights, which was pretty recently. Like on Monday, my ISP went down. So as a baker on residential network, that kind of stings because my baker went down as well. So I lost 2 blocks, which isn't a big deal, but I don't like seeing that red on TZKT. And for the highlights, I recently purchased an air conditioning system, which is a great quality of life improvement, I think. Even in rural Belgian countryside where it does get hot from time to time. So yeah, that's great. And then also I got some new boxing gloves, which is also, I'm a simple man. I like new stuff. Yeah, that's it for me.
Are you in Flanders or Walloon?
In Flanders, yes.
Okay, right, cool.
Am I allowed to make a joke about the basically kind of the Belgian countryside? I mean, it's not that big, right? So the countryside is either, it's what's the difference in between the end of the suburban and the countryside in Belgium? It's
You can make all the jokes you want.
Yes, we need to start using that. Yeah. But first of all,
do.
kind of like, but it's true that kind of one of the good things about talking like this is that we never, like we usually chat on Discord and we never chat about this kind of stuff. I knew you were. I did know you were in Belgium, but until very recently, for instance, that probably we have been chatting for a lot of time. Anyway,
well, I love Belgium. I love particularly like Flanders, and I spent a lot of time in Brugge, Ghent, and various other places. I did actually speak a bit of Dutch briefly, not very well.
Not
very well.
I almost moved to Brussels instead of Paris. For instance, I like Brussels. Yeah.
Right, it's enough geography. Let's get back to Tezos. Rich, what are your highlights and lowlights for the period?
I don't have any lowlights, but I do have a highlight. I don't know how many years, but maybe 4 years ago, I started a running club on Strava. And it's a Tezos club. So if anybody is a runner and who's also into Tezos, feel free to join Strava and join the club. The highlight is that I'm running again. I now have an artificial joint in my hip. So, but now I can actually start running again. So that's a highlight because I really miss the sport. And
why would you have an artificial hip at the age of 25, Rich?
Yeah. The ripe old age of 52. Yeah. So years ago, I played a lot of hockey and I got a severe hit. And my hip almost dislocated, and I couldn't walk. But over the years, that joint eventually wore out because of the damage that was done during hockey, and couldn't run anymore. So, but thankfully, I'm back at it.
Back to normal. Okay, that's excellent. Right. Well, I'm not going to run. Every time I did run for a bit about 10 years ago, and I managed to get up to the sort of 13, 14 kilometer.
Nice.
And I used to run a lot in New York, because I used to go to New York quite a lot. I used to run up and down the block system because you can always do a left or a right depending on the red lights. But I'm more of an armchair cyclist these days. Herman, you haven't said anything much yet apart from a few jokes about Belgium. What are your highlights and lowlights?
Yeah, I was hesitating about saying something about artificial joints, but you were, I let the old guy do the old guy joke. No, highlights. Yeah, so there was immediate one of the fun thing. I tried a new water sport last Monday. I tried. It's a big word. So there was I was nearby here in I tried windsurfing. So this is the evolution of old windsurf. So it was a first time on the board. So ideally, like it's a bit of an intermediate in between windsurf and a kiteboarding in a way. So you do have like they call it a wing, but it's kind of looks like actual Batman wings, and you grab them and you hold them. So basically, it adds a bit of complexity to windsurf because you have to move around with that thingy. Unluckily, or maybe luckily, there was not that many wind, but so I managed to get the basics and still managed to fall off a couple of times. So it's been an hour trying to swear at how hard it was hard to navigate, and then we ended up, doing some paddle surfing for an hour and a half. So that's a nice outing with the missus. So that's like one checkbox, one new thing I tried, I guess. That's a bit another another highlights, I guess. I don't know, it feels a bit of business as usual. We are like in the middle of the exploration period for a new proposal, and counting and that. And low lights, not sure. I haven't been able to be running that much. I've been concatenating a couple of nags on my ankle and then on my back last week. So it's either weight or age catching up with me or both, but hopefully that will be over soon. What about you, Chris?
Where to start? So the highlights, they're all outside Tezos, obviously, apart from one of them. I lost 6 kilos in Lent. How about that? Of which 4 kilos was fat. So there's 4 kilos less fat of me. I had 2 Easters to celebrate. I had the Catholic Easter with my family, and then I had the Orthodox Easter with my girlfriend's family. And we got a small lamb, cut it up, and put it in the oven. What else happened? Oh yeah, went to the seaside on the first warm day of the month. It's lovely, absolutely lovely. The weather said it was going to be like -7. And then it was about 20. So it was really nice. I walked up and down the front. Tezos stuff. I reduced the number of bakers from 8 to 4. And I've saved quite a lot of money doing that because the HSMs that they use are quite expensive. So we've decided it's the time to do that. So we've now on the 4 bakers. And I finished 2 chapters of my top secret book about Tezos. So that's good. There's only another, 400 to go. We're nearly there. Low lights, the tax man cometh again. Last time I thought I'd overthrown my property landlord permits. So for the background on this is I am a property owner. I have 4 flats on one of those and I'm selling them. Yet I still need to spend £1,000 on a landlord permit, even though I'm selling them. And so I thought we'd got away with it. The court had said these was not quite right. Now the court said they are quite right. But this morning I got a exclusion notice on one, so that's all right. But the other one I'm not so sure. So it's just money for nothing. They take the bread out of the property developer's mouth. And I have to say that solicitors haven't got any better since I've sold a property last time. Just absolutely, I'm sure they're all listening to this. So hello, my solicitor, if you are, please hurry up with my conveyancing. But they're just not very fast.
Have you tried to replace them by Claude?
I wish I mean, to be quite frank with you, a couple of years ago, I nearly did the conveyancing course because it's only $3,000, and you've just got to go and do your searches and just be very patient. But no, it's not worth it. I'm getting out of that game. I've had enough of it. Right. So what we're going to talk about tonight then. Lots of people think the hard bit about setting up a baker on Tezos is setting the software up, and I completely disagree with that. setting the software up takes minutes, as we have proved on this Extreme many times. We did an installation last time, so it's not that's not the big problem. The Linux system administration can be painful for some people that haven't done it, but by and large, installing the software is minutes. So really, what you're worrying about on a proof of stake network is your stake, because you've got to have some stake, funny enough, a wallet with some coins in it that you put up as a bond, and that bond's there, and you'll lose it if you do some bad things. And those bad things are typically producing 2 blocks at the same height. So if you have an accident, you produce 2 blocks at the same height and they're different, you're going to split the chain, and that's a bad thing. If you doubly attest and you produce 2 different attestations, you'll get into trouble, and you'll lose a bit of bond. So you really want to protect yourself against that, but also because your wallet has got live funds in it and they're worth something, you also want to protect yourself against unauthorized transfers. So really, that's, for me, is the harder bit of baking, is where you store your keys and how you secure them. And if you move into a more audited environment where you have a regulatory requirement that looks after these, and whether you need to be 100% sure that no one else can get to these keys, that's when you get into the realms of hardware security modules and single tenanted products rather than shared cloud products to store your keys. So we're going to unpack that tonight. We're going to talk about our setups and why they work for us. We're also going to talk a little bit about BLS keys, because BLS is a new standard. There isn't a hardware security module that supports those at the moment, or signs fast enough for baking. And Rich has been working on a signer. Go on, switch the cameras, Rich. Show us it. Quick.
Okay, here we go.
So Rich has been working on something which he might be able to show us later on, which is a device that holds a remote signer, and that's useful for protecting your keys in a home environment. So without further ado, Herman hasn't said very much for once, so I'm going to let him speak a little bit. Herman, do you want to tell us a little about your baking setup?
I have several, mostly as you are. I have devices. I guess my mainnet baker setup at the moment, I'm using a Ledger S Plus, and I do have the consensus key on it. I do occasionally might go with the consensus key on disk because of probably the similar situation that with Zir0h said earlier, right? So on my mainnet setup, I bake at home, and sometimes I travel. And it happened to me once. Well, if you remember, Chris, it was on Tezos last year. It was the first time I missed a block in which I basically I had the consensus key on the ledger, and something happened, and the baker crashed, and also I couldn't get. I was not even able to log in until I got help from my wife to reboot the baker, right? So now when I'm on extended travel, I change my consensus key to have the different consensus key I could redeploy easily on the cloud on an emergency setting. So I'm still haven't. I'm convinced I still haven't done the changes to move my mainnet setup to BLS. I'm planning to do this soon. I do have the hardware because I had copies of the hardware. And, we ran a testing campaign last year when we introduced the Nomadic Labs Tezos BLS signer. So I got the gear. I assembled one. There's a couple of videos. I think some with Beata and me having fun assembling it, and also recording one of the tutorials that was on the telnet, and one of those signers, it's downstairs, attached to one of the testnet setups. But but also, for instance, on some of the other testnet setups, I'm using a signatory solution to use DE, an enclave, because it's on Amazon, right? So this is my Dagon. It's I think it's Telnet.
I'm going to cut in because there's quite a lot to unpack there. So you've mentioned the word consensus key, and so you have a baking key, which can be any key that holds the funds, but you can delegate your consensus to another key, which is a little bit safer than the master key, and that's the one you can put on your baker. You still have to treat it as seriously as your baking key, but if you stake enough, there's less risk. There's also the companion key as well now with BLS, which you need to sign DAO attestations. So there are actually 3 keys here, and if I ruled the world, there would be a 4th one as well for voting. But anyway, I don't rule the world, so there. Right, Zir0h, how about your setup?
So I used to have 3 types of setups. For GhostNet, I used to run Signatory with a HashiCorp Vault 3-node backend, because if it's worth doing, it was worth overdoing. But now GhostNet is dead, so that's no longer running. For my other testnet bakers, I just use a Docker Compose stack with keys, the BLS keys on disk, because the testnets, those you can rotate them very fast. And then for mainnet, I use a BakeBuddy with a Ledger Nano S Plus as HSM, which has been running great for many years right now. So that's also why I haven't changed to BLS consensus yet, partly because I'm a bit lazy. And it's also hard for me to change something that's running, that I know is running great, to something new. As a sysadmin, that's always a bit touchy for me, I think. But I do have the hardware, because I've tested the Nomadic Labs Raspberry Pi signer already. I've done some merge requests on the GitLab as well. I haven't tested the other solutions yet, but I think Rich will show me maybe that can be the final push to install the BLS companion and consensus keys on my mainnet baker. We'll see.
Of course, you can still keep your master key on the ledger. So
yes.
The beauty of it. So you can have your consensus key on something else, and you can still have your ledger, and you can walk around with that and vote using that key and things like that. Right, Rich, you've been baking longer than I've probably been baking longer than all of us, haven't you, Herman?
I think so. Yeah, since day one. So yeah, definitely. So yeah, I thought this great. It was great to do this aggregated signatures and improve the speed of the network and improve the security by having everybody attest. And I thought this was a nice little project that I could take on and create something that was custom for me, because I wanted something that would work well for me. And so I came up with something called Zir0h. It's the name comes from Rust because it was written in Rust, and sign all. So it's Rust is signing all, and that's where I come up with the name, and it looks like the French bird, which is Zir0h, spelled with an O, but then I spelled this with a U. So in case anyone is curious about that name. So yeah, I also did a bit of math on how much money this is costing us for not going to BLS, and it's about $50,000 US for the network and costs of bandwidth and disk space. And so if we reduce the amount of disk space and the data and the bandwidth, we could save the cost of this whole network about $50,000 a year, which is not very big, but hey, we don't have $50,000 to throw away. So let's just get everybody to upgrade. Let's give this, let's see if I can.
Yeah, I was wanted to interrupt there because I think it's kind of like it's a good argument to say because I guess that when we position the work for aggregated data stations and we did mention the savings in terms of bandwidth and space, but I don't remember us actually monetizing that. So I think it's also like, especially it's kind of like again a good remark because that would have talked to the sysadmin crowd, not just go to the savings.
Exactly. Especially since the theme now is profit. Let's talk about money and let's talk about savings. And so I created this. Let me see if I can bring it up. This is what it looks like. And everything on this has been written from scratch, mostly, except for some of the libraries I'm pulling in. And also it's compatible with Okta Signer. So it's using the exact same protocol. I want it to be compatible so that anybody who's using Okta Signer could just swap it in for this as well. So right now there are, let's see if I can flip over to the menu. And there are a bunch of buttons here where you can, the thing I like about the touchscreen is that you can just look at this device and see what's going on. And you don't have to be, especially when it's booting or, there's these periods of time where the device is doing something and you're not sure if it's actually working. Well, with the touchscreen, you can go in there and have a look. So you have different buttons that give you some information about the system, what the CPU temperature is, and that kind of stuff. And part of this was to make it fun too. And so what I've done is tried to save as much power as possible. And one of the things, and I think I'm kind of geeking out here, but one of the things I thought was like, hey, well, why don't we just turn off the LED? But turning it off completely wasn't as much fun as having it turn on whenever there was a transaction. So let me see if I can bring it up here. I don't know if you can see inside, but there's a green LED, and it'll flash whenever it's on. So that's kind of like the kind of stuff that I went in there and geeked out and had fun with, and built I built it to be as secure as possible. So I have a custom kernel on here with everything stripped out. There are no drivers for the Wi-Fi, no drivers for the Bluetooth. All of that is completely out. No extra file systems, like every module that you can think of in the Linux kernel. So this is a very bare minimum. And it provides
the hardware is capable of that, though, is it? If it needed to do
the hardware is capable, yes.
Yeah.
And it's disabled intentionally for security and for speed.
But of course, it's actually quite difficult to get hardware that doesn't have any kind of internet connectivity these days. So if you want a single board computer to do like a key ceremony, it's quite difficult to find one that's just got a socket for wire. Similarly, a printer as well. If you want to print stuff out and not have any risk of it going somewhere, theoretical risk, obviously, it's quite difficult these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else can I show you here? And the watermark, which is an important part of the security. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask a couple of questions, but before you jump in, so you mentioned one clarification, maybe that this is the same. The hardware is the same. The shopping list is the same from the Tezos BLS Signer by Nomadic, right? So it's still like it's a Raspberry Pi 02.
Yes.
And the same goes for the similar screen setup. But I think kind of one important thing here is kind of when you say it's written in Rust, it's not a Rust implementation of the Linux, with Rust building your own signing software or directly. And And I think one of the other differences there is a bit of the architecture, right? You mentioned when you connect the Tezos RPA-VLS have the Octets signer running inside, and you connect it with the Octets client as if it was any other remote key. But in your case, if I understand correctly, it works more as a ledger, let's say, in a way that you connect to the signer via the signer, or it's running a sign. Because you mentioned it's interoperable with Octets signer, so that's, I guess, the question.
Yes.
I suppose, do you add it? Do you import the key with Octets client in the same way as you would, say, with a ledger?
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
The key is generated on the device. So it's using the same ideas that were done with the RPI signer, which I think was just to copy the Octets signer binary onto the Raspberry Pi. So I felt like that binary was a little bit large, and I wanted to have something a bit smaller. So I re-implemented Octets signer, but in Rust. The signing portion, which is the BLS, I did not re-import. I'm using the library that is, I think, verified or at least audited. So I'm not like reinventing the signing, but the protocol where sending messages to and from the device are the same as it would be for the Octets signer. The keys never leave the device, so it's not going from signer to signer. It is going from baker to signer.
Can you export them if you want to, or is it just consensus companion throwaway keys? Yeah,
they're throwaway keys. Yeah, they can't be exported. There is a feature for the host utility to re-image onto another SD card, and you have the option to copy the keys onto the new SD card. So that would be the closest thing to having the keys escape the device.
But that's good enough because you've got a 2-day window, right? So if your device crashes, you would be down for 2 days because you can move your consensus key and companion key, but you've
up to 3.
Yeah, if you've got a backup SD card, I guess and another device. I guess you're all right, aren't you?
Well,
yeah, you're up and running immediately. So, I mean, I think it's a small risk. During the transfer and while the host is copying it, it's all in memory and it zeroes out the memory. And so it's just.
Can you go back to your watermark display? Because this is quite an important point. So one of the things that a remote signer does, and it looks like Rich's does too, is it keeps track of the block number that has been signed, the last block number that's been signed, and it prevents you signing that block number again. And this is what prevents double baking, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
And there are 2 parts to this. One is double baking while the signer is running. And you can see the mem in the disk columns. So the memory is the last signature that was signed. But on disk, I actually keep 1 level higher than the last level that was signed. So that the disk version of the high watermark is only for when the system crashes and you need to reboot. And it is as a performance decision. So to sign, what I wanted is to sign as quickly as possible. And so as soon as the signature is provided or returned, I write the next watermark on the disk. But it's 1 higher than the last version that was signed. And it was to avoid some kind of a race condition where if this thing crashed and it rebooted within 6 seconds, there was this very slight chance, which I was not comfortable with, that there could be a double sign. So,
have you had any issues writing that high watermark? Because one of the problems that I've seen with a ledger is the flash in the ledger wasn't great. I had mixed experience. I had a Nano S, which ran for 2 years on my Baker with no problems. Then I had a Nano S Plus, which I put to a test network, and I accidentally had over 40% of the stake on the test network. And I must have been hammering it, and it lasted about 5 days. And it cracked, and as a result, the test net halted. And what I had to do is call up Pierre, who worked for Nomadic. Have you got any spare ledgers, Pierre? And he went, yeah. Okay, so I read the seed phrase out to him. He recovered the ledger and we were able to progress the test network. So that ledger definitely died. I've got it somewhere here. It burnt out. You can't write to the flash anymore. So are there any, what sort of SD card do you need to use there?
Yeah, well, I've actually done a lot of things for wear leveling. And so I've optimized I'm using F2FS, a custom file system. I'm not using the traditional like XTF file system, and everything is specialized for the SD card. And I'm writing the minimal amount of data as possible to the disk. And with the wear leveling, this disk, like an 8 gig disk, SD card should last you for 10, 20 years. It'll outlive the card. So I don't think you can wear this card because it's so little data. And combine that with the wear leveling. But again, it was a choice of file system. Some file systems have journaling, which there's extra writes to it, and all of that was eliminated.
How do you protect? Has it got something like soft depths in that file system? Some other way of coming up clean?
Soft depths. I'm not
So
sure.
there was someone, I think it was Kirk McCusick, sort of almost 20 years ago, came up with something called soft dependencies, which is a way of writing to the disk so that you don't have to FSCK the disk. Check the disk when you come up. You can do it in the background.
Oh, okay.
And so things like ext4 in the journal, there are different ways of doing that. You're writing to a journal, and if you crash, you replay the journal. But of course, obviously, you're then writing to a journal, which on an SD card might not be what you want. So on the file system you're using, how resilient is it? If your system crashes, does it come back up most of the time, or do you have to do anything to it?
Yeah, so F2FS was designed specifically for SD cards. And so a lot of those considerations, design decisions were made for that exact scenario where these devices will be turned off and attempt to recover. I don't know the details on how it was designed. I haven't gotten to that, but I just know that it was designed specifically for this kind of purpose. I haven't had it corrupt on me yet, so I think it should be okay.
All right, so in terms of buying that piece of hardware, then how do we get hold of these things? If I want one.
Yeah, there's a few places where you can pick them up. I found mine the best price on Amazon, but of course there's the Raspberry Pi stores anywhere that you can pick them up, and yeah, they're not too hard to find.
Do you have a parts list on your site that people can?
I do not, but I should put that together. It's the same parts list as the original RPI signer from Pneumatic Labs.
So you can find the parts are listed in the repo.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's for someone that's not quite hardware savvy or something, having the list of parts to buy that work together is quite important for them.
Yeah.
And then I guess the SD card is just an image that they can then fiddle with from another machine, right?
Yeah, there's a host utility that actually takes care of creating the image, and it even encodes on the first flash. It checks with the node that you've got running either on your system or that you've specified, and it writes a high watermark immediately to the disk.
You do have to keep in mind that you buy the correct Raspberry Pi, because there are some versions with header and without header. And if you choose without header, you have to solder stuff yourself. So you might want to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think we had the WH on the list, which is the with headers version, explicitly because I think that some of the iterations we did fall into that.
I started to solder things during COVID. I managed to repair a shaver. I replaced the the chargeable battery pack, and then but I can't do anything on a circuit board. My eyesight's too bad. It's just ridiculous. It's the solder every time. It's like, Anyway, no soldering. Right, come on. What other things does it do, Rich?
It shows you the transactions that it's signing in real time, so you can see them and how long it took. It's between 5.9 and 6 milliseconds and very consistent. And you can see when there's a pair of keys, that's the companion. And if it's a single key, it's a consensus key. And it tells you if it's a pre-attestation or an attestation, and the height, the block height on the far left. There's also a shutdown button. So if you're afraid of corrupting your card, you can just hit shutdown. Actually, I'll shut it down now just to show you how quickly it shows up. It boots up. So I will hit the power button. And there it goes. It's usually about 3 seconds. And this is, of course, the test network. So you will see my pin.
That's Rich's pin for his live mainnet.
There it is.
And also his ATM cards as well.
You can enter 5 to 10 digits for the pin.
Yeah.
And yeah. Autofocus here. Here we go.
And how long did that take you to write?
I spent a few months actually with a lot of help from Claude. But even then, it was still quite a bit of work because of the display driver. That was the display driver that I could find. It didn't have the performance that I wanted or needed. It's because there was some corruption happening. Sometimes this was the reference driver provided by the manufacturer, which was, okay, I guess, but it corrupted in certain cases, and I needed to have the update quickly, and which is a bit of a challenge for an e-paper. So I decided to implement that, and so all the drivers are written in Rust, and I wasn't able to lean on anything existing for that, and it's part of the reason why it took a bit of time, but.
Is there anything reusable from that? I mean, is there anything you can, as an artifact, you can release that's sort of?
Yeah, I think so. I have a bunch of cargo crates that I could publish. I haven't done that yet, but I do intend to publish those for anybody else who wants to share, to use some of the work. It's licensed under MIT, so we can do whatever you like with it.
Fantastic. Right, so what we've got here is an example of a hardware security module of some form. I mean, the key is still on disk, right? I mean, it's encrypted at rest. That pin decrypts, or
right on disk it's encrypted. In memory, it's decrypted. Yes.
Yeah, which is often. I mean, it's often the way in device. I believe even in the ledger that's the case. I'm not entirely sure about that, but that could be. Anyway, of course, if you go into the more audited world, with a hardware security module where you've got a key in there and all the signing's done in, and only one user can get in and get out, you've got a slightly different situation. So we can talk a little bit around that if people want to. But before I do that, does anyone want to talk about Rich's little project? Rich's little big project, actually. Right. No. Well, actually, we just had something in which I found relatively amusing. So MB on Twitter has kindly done a picture of us with balaclavas on. So you can find that on Twitter, and there are cats in every picture as well. I appear to have a cat.
Nice.
I have a black cat.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, MB. That is appreciated. I shall have to go and get a black balaclava for next time.
Tezos logo on it. No, yeah.
And a cat as well.
So yes, you're saying like I know that I don't want to. At some point, this got a bit into like a bit of a heated debate on Discord, but I wanted to ask a bit about the performance. I think what you're showing there, it's a 6 millisecond. That's the round trip for the whole or just the signing of the whole.
No, that's it's 6 milliseconds for the signing, but the round trip is only a couple of extra microseconds.
Yeah, because it's 90% signing, right?
Right. Yeah.
And in terms of performance, because I know kind of like this is it's a bit faster for sure than the Tezos RP BLS signer, which is what the people wanted to see. of an NL Tezos RPA VLS signer, especially because this one is implemented in Python and it fills the software for the device. So it feels like kind of, Rust naturally will give you significantly better performances in general. But yeah, so I don't know if you have done ballpark comparisons with the with the other alternatives, or I think that at some point.
Yeah, performance-wise, yeah. I mean, it's as fast as I think I can get it right now. I think TestSign is catching up. I think they just posted something a couple of days ago where they've got a new update release coming soon, which is great. Yeah, and it's great to see that we can have high performance signers everywhere.
I was going to be a devil's advocate at the current time of at the current block time and the current the sign performances of all the different signers are more than okay and significantly better than what you might get on a ledger device, even without VLS, right? So I think they're kind of I think that there's perhaps it's an aspect of future proofing, but also making sure that we can have the all these devices being able to make with off the shelf and affordable, let's say, solutions. We didn't mention price, we mentioned provider, but I think ballparks it should be, depending on where you are, around $50 or €50, right? More or less in terms of.
Yeah, in US dollars, about that. Yeah, it's about $80 Canadian, so that's about right.
Yeah, so it's kind of like it's on the ballpark of Tezos of a ledger device.
Right, it's a bit cheaper, isn't it?
It's cheap,
and it does BLS, which the ledger does. Well, the ledger doesn't sign. It can do BLS.
It can do, but not in the
fast enough.
Well, it takes more than a minimum block time.
Yeah.
So it's actually a very good price compared to a ledger, and it works.
Now, one thing I want to mention is that we could increase the security of this hardware. I know there might be some people who are maybe reluctant to pick up something that's general purpose like this, but we could eventually get a Raspberry Pi Zero with chips that cannot be read if they were frozen, that sort of thing. Because there are some physical attacks, if you're worried about physical attacks, where somebody can take this device and plug it into a power supply and carry it over, and while it's still powered on, they can walk out of your, wherever they stole it from.
I mean, a couple of things on that. If you've got enough stake on your key, if you've staked a lot, they can only drain your spendable balance with that.
Yes.
And of course, if someone does steal it, you can change your key, but you've got to be quick about it.
Yes.
But there's an HSM hat, isn't there, for a Raspberry Pi? You can get an HSM hat now, so you can store things on a
right. Yeah, there's a bunch of things that we can do to improve the security. That's one of them. Another one is, instead of having a pin, we could sign into the Raspberry Pi with a ledger. So if you wanted to, I'm thinking of being able to just plug the ledger into the Nano to sign in, and then there's no pin that's stored on the signer.
And no one can boot without it. So if they walk away and the power goes, good luck.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
it's there's nothing stored on the SD card. So there are some options, but I if there's interest in that sort of thing, then I will pursue it. But at this point, I think it's good enough for maybe a small baker, but the options are there.
Sure, right. So let's move up to things like KMSs then, because on Amazon and Google, I think Microsoft probably they have a key management service where you create a key in a very shared environment, and they will tell you they've fully audited it and everything, and only you can get your keys. Well, Unfortunately, that doesn't always satisfy an auditor, but that's probably good enough for a medium baker as well. You generate your keys, say in the Amazon KMS, you put a remote signer in front of it. We haven't really touched on signature. We've spoken about it, but there are two remote signers for Tezos. There's Octez signer that comes with the Octez suite. That can manage ledgers, and it can manage keys on disk. I'm not sure if it can connect to another. It probably can connect to another remote signer, but that's quite a basic one, and it runs on one system. So your watermark is on the system, and then you've got Signatory, which has got many more features. You can do a lot of filtering on it. So you can remove the ability to transfer funds. You can remove a very granular set of things from anyone that's using that key, and that will hook into KMSs. It will hook into the HSM that a lot of the cloud providers provide, and it will also talk to other signers, and it will use files on disk. So that's quite a good signer, but it will also has the ability to have a high watermark in an external source, which means you can run a cluster of signatories for the same key and not have to worry about your high watermark and double baking. So that is a solution I use for the the foundation I work for, which will remain nameless. We are using Signatory now, and we're using the Amazon Cloud HSM for our key. The keys were generated in the HSM in a key ceremony, and they were never seen by me or anyone else. And the user that created those keys is not known to any of us. We can't extract the keys from the HSM. We can only sign with them and use the remote signer in front. So that works for it. If you've got a hardware security module and it's a single tenant one, like the Amazon one, I think the Microsoft one, and I think Google are doing one as well at some point. If you've got that, you will satisfy an audit. So if you've got a lot of money and you need to satisfy someone that you're, a regulatory authority that you're audited, no one can get to that key. That's what you need. Then stepping down a bit, you've got the KMS, which is probably 99.99999 reoccurring good, but you don't have that same tick box to say that maybe some engineer could get into your key. So both of those work with a remote signer that then talks to that hardware or cloud provider, and Signatory is the one to look at with Octez signer if you just want to do something on disk. So does anyone else use a remote signer here? Because anyone at all? I suppose Rich, you've just written one, really, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I'm using Signatory in a couple of the testnet setups, and in particular, in my Tallinnnet baker, I'm using the Signatory's solution to handle VLS, because I think you mentioned before, Signatory provides support for a lot of this cloud-based HSMs, and one of the problems that we have with VLS is that there's no HSM support for it. So basically, what people from ECAD implemented is a little bit like in the same way that you did great with Rossignol, or what we have with the other signers is basically create an HSM in a way, and they provide two backends to do it. One is via GCP with confidential computing spaces, and in other AWS with Nitro enclaves, more or less similar technology. These are basically a trusted execution environment, and again, this allows you to, in a way, run your signer. They provide both options, so you could have the keys inside the TE, which is equivalent to having the key on disk, but a little bit more encrypted. And this is a little bit what I'm using in one of my testnet versions. But also, you could have the keys. You could also have the keys in a database, which costs a little bit more. The key to access it, because you need to pay for it access. So due to managerial approvals and budgets, I am running the one instance of the cheaper option, which is I'm running. So maybe I could share.
Well, I don't know about the Google one, but the Amazon Nitro Enclave, I think, is
Yeah.
free, isn't it? With so every
no.
right?
No.
Or do you just pay for the instance? Like
I think there's a catch.
So a night for people that don't know, a Nitro Enclave is a compute instance that sticks onto a Amazon EC2 compute instance, and it can only access that Nitro Enclave by one port. And so what you do is you have that Nitro Enclave running a remote signer. There's a small version of Signatory that runs in it, and it has the key on there. Now, what I'm doing is I'm securing my BLS key. I have it encrypted using a key and an HSM. You didn't see that coming, did you? So the HSM, in theory, that encryption can't be broken yet. Give it 10 years. But the key is protected by the HSM that way. So we have an encrypted string, which is the BLS key, decrypt it with the HSM in the enclave, and then it never gets out of the enclave. And that's not just something that happens on Tezos. The Ethereum people are using Nitro enclaves for keys there as well, because they're using BLS keys.
Yeah,
so it's becoming a common technique.
Indeed, and there's also the use of an enclave for signing is also becoming, also relevant, not just for consensus, but it's also being used, for instance, in different layer 2s for work on different sequencers and things like that. You want to basically provide a layer of security around crafting of operations and whatnot. One thing that I got stuck in my mind, I remember the caveat. The AWS, the enclave is free, but you cannot have an enclave on any it depends. So basically, the machines, the VMs that you need to deploy, the EC instances, the ones that supported an enclave are not in your free tier plan. So if you are paying for the machine, you can get an enclave for free.
Free tier plan. What's that?
Well,
is that for poor people like you, sir?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's for all of us.
Yeah. No, I don't think I've been free tier for a long time on Amazon.
Yeah, I agree. But anyway, but it's not. I mean, it's not that expensive. It's not that expensive if you are running with your keys inside the enclave.
Okay. Cool. Right. So we managed to talk about remote signing HSM's keys for about 45 minutes. Hooray, and we're at the hour. So I'm just gonna, before going around for some parting comments from everyone, I think we haven't really talked about Protocol U. We don't really have time, but Zir0h is there. It's in the exploration phase. Which you're Argentinian, sir, aren't you?
You don't pronounce the H in Spanish. It's silent.
Well, why write it then? I mean,
Suaya. I mean, you English, people of all people shouldn't be speaking about syntax rules and what gets pronounced and what doesn't. Spanish is almost always syntax directed for pronunciation.
Come on, keep it coming. Let it all out. Come on.
Yeah.
Right, so we're now in the exploration phase, which means that if you're a baker on Tezos, you should be voting. You should be voting yes, no, or pass. To vote yes or no or pass, you can use this command, which is on the bottom. It is at the Agora site. So you can vote yes to support it. You can vote no to not support it. If you're very uncertain and you're still uncertain, and we've got some days to go yet before exploration is up, it's better for the community if you vote pass if you're uncertain, because that counts to the quorum and we're more likely to get a decision. So I think we will get a decision because we normally do, but please vote. If you're in the United Kingdom or Great Britain and Northern Ireland tomorrow, some people have got the vote as well. So I'll be voting in you, and I shall also be voting in my local council elections. So I encourage you to do both. Right. So before we go, any closing comments? Rich, do you have anything to add to this glorious signing podcast?
I would love for everyone to upgrade their signer. We need to get to BLS ASAP. I think it would be great to see that happen to improve the network. And yeah.
And it's
here to help.
It's an essential for Tezos X. We need this to happen. So I mean, I've been a bit slow. I mean, I managed Captain Stakes Baker for him, and he's on BLS, I believe. But I've still got to get a few bits done for the Tezos Foundation to get it live. It's sort of obviously a bit awkward because I've got to move around an audited environment, but we are getting there. Right, Zir0h, anything to say before we go?
I will also make work of activating my BLS consensus and companion keys. I've been converted with the $50,000 a year reduction. Thank you for having me, everyone, and thank you for
the demonstration. Yeah. Herman, any passing comments? Bearing in mind, I have the gong of despair for if you go over the.
No, I think it's fine. No, it was nice to meet again, Zir0h and Rick. I think that kind of like the first time I see you guys face to face. So at least we chat a lot on Discord, on Slack, on several places, and also we kind of it's a pleasure. And I'd also at the beginning I want to say you were you guys have. Both of you are quite active in Discord and things like that. Zir0h are almost official, backbone of the unofficial support team as well. So you're doing a lot of heavy lifting community-wise for bakers and in general. So it's good to give that shout out. And I was going to say, like, we didn't talk about Ushuaia, but if you want to, we did a Tezos Tuesday episode yesterday with Tezos Common Folk. I don't recommend it. I was feeling a bit tired. Started at 9 p.m. my time, but I spent a couple of times answering questions there. So you can catch perhaps the recording. And yes, don't forget to vote.
I think we'll probably do a switchover episode.
We should do an episode.
Last time. Yeah, we should get on the sofa.
It's kind of what I was thinking. It's again happening in the middle of the World Cup, but unlike last time, it's not happening after the final. So I'm looking for a set of bakers that might want to do the necessary so that the activation aligns with the final. I have 50 million Argentinians that might be grateful if we put that alignment, because that was the interesting alignment of the events. Yes.
Smashing. Right. So thanks to our guests, Rich and Zir0h. Been great having you on. Thanks again to Herman. I've obviously got to get in a taxi to go over to his house to put him back into the box tonight to stop him getting up to mischief. And we will probably see you in June at some point, if not here at the steakhouse. Thanks, everyone. Good.
Thank you.
All right.